end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one! I've never felt power like this before.
Commander Oscar from SA Hector. Commander Oscar from SA Hector. Go ahead, Roy, go ahead. And down 10 feet from this road. They'll have to come round the back of
Tell me. Slow down.
Yeah, Roger, I've just come through.
The cost of this fire continues to climb, with more properties confirmed destroyed. We now know that 143 buildings, including 128 homes, are gone. It's left Yarloop residents bitter and angry over the handling of the crisis. Elle Mitteros joins us, and Elle, they say they were caught in the inferno without any warning.
Well, that's right, Louise. Tonight, many Yarloop locals are furious. They say they weren't given enough time to flee their homes or to actively defend their properties. They say far more should have been done to warn them of the imminent dangers. In just minutes, Yarloop was reduced to ashes. The raging fire that tore through the town on Wednesday night, too big, too fast to stop. While locals mourn the loss of 2 residents, heartbreak has quickly turned to anger. At community meetings held at evacuation centres in Pinjarra and Australind today.
The last text I got was 10:30 Wednesday night for a fire warning for Waroona. I'm in Yarloop. From then on till the fire went through until today, I still haven't had anything. There are still people from Yarloop here that are waiting for an evacuation order.
Many say their properties didn't stand a chance as the flames engulfed the historic town.
No one actually come around and warned them that the fires were coming through.
Alex Jovanovic and other residents say the Department of Fire and Emergency Services didn't issue a warning for Yarloop until their town was burning to the ground. He says the blaze took hold at around 5 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, but DFES never issued alerts for Yarloop that evening. The alerts were only for the Alcoa mine site and Lane Pool Reserve, both in the Shire of Waroona.
There was no police on the ground to actually make sure the houses were empty and that sort of stuff, which I find very, very disappointing. Even a brigade member to go and make sure the houses were clear.
Catherine Price lives in Waroona with her 3 children. She evacuated them to Yarloop, where her parents live.
So I took them to Yarloop thinking that they would be safe.
Then Catherine lost contact with them
and was told that houses were going very quickly. I was praying that there was still some kind of way out. And to even think there was no warning. There was no warning for Yarloop. Not one warning.
Many locals believe Yarloop will never fully recover as a result of this disaster. And now with the confirmed deaths, it'll be even harder for this tight-knit community to ever rebuild. And there's frustration that the state government's $1 million in disaster relief will do little to help. Acting Premier Kim Hames put on the spot by angry locals as he met the devastated communities today.
And our people get what, $3,000. We call that fair for this country?
But DFES says it issued warnings for the Shire of Harvey from midday Wednesday, which includes the town of Yarloop. It says a full investigation will now be launched.
And how close were they to the fire?
Seconds. Literally seconds. They were driving through the fire to get out.
Elle Mitteros, 9 News.
Check this out. It's a car in Buffalo that's turned into a giant icicle Monday after a weekend storm sent waves from Lake Erie surging right onto the streets. After a slow start, winter has hit upstate New York with a vengeance. You're going to see 3 feet of snow the next few days, but this winter will not compare to last. The city got so much snow last year that a 12-foot pile still hadn't melted by the end of July.
Neighbors in Southwest Florida cleaning up this morning after a tornado. It struck just before 7 o'clock last night. You can see the damage here. This was in Cape Coral. It tore roofs off of homes. It collapsed garages. It damaged vehicles. At least 3 people were injured in this, and at one point, 10,000 people lost power.
Authorities in Southwest Florida say power is still being restored after a tornado struck Cape Coral on Saturday evening. The twister did not hurt anyone. However, 135-mile-per-hour winds damaged homes and knocked down power lines, cutting electricity to thousands of people.
All the windows just started breaking and popping and exploding. It was just unbelievable.
Cars flipped over, a boat flipped over on a car. I mean, there's roofs missing. There's pretty much trees just rooted right out of the down power lines. It's just a mess.
Authorities say the damage stretches over about 12 square miles. Governor Rick Scott toured the area on Sunday.
This is a pretty big area that went around, and you see these things like impaled in the drive. It's pretty scary. I mean, they broke all the windows, but if somebody had been outside, we had to have killed them.
To the north, wintry weather is hitting much of Ohio. Southern and central Ohio are expecting wind chills below zero on Tuesday and Wednesday. Some homes had lost power over the weekend, and some businesses were closed.
Came here to get some products for our Sunday school, refreshments, and the store is closed.
I came here to stop and get some gas and stuff like that, but since it's not open, I'll just have to keep moving and go to the next place.
Southern and central Ohio could get up to 2 inches of snow on Monday and Tuesday. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
One lane of a very important bridge in northern Ontario has now reopened after it was seriously damaged over the weekend, and cold weather's to blame. It's been very cold up north, and what happened was a piece of its decking actually lifted up about 2 feet. So this has been an ongoing situation. Cars and some trucks are now being allowed to drive in alternating directions, but heavier trucks still cannot use the bridge. No injuries were reported here, so that is certainly some good news. This is the Nipigon River Bridge we're talking about here, by the way. It's the only east to west route across northern Ontario. That's why it's so important. It was a multi-million-dollar bridge, first opened in 2013, but parts of it were still yet to be completed. Now, it's unclear when the bridge will be fully functional.
Happening right now, whole lot of problem in Del Mar because of the gaping hole you see there left behind by the El Nino storms. Crews will start repairing that hole today, but that could take months. 10 News reporter Jared Aarons is there live. So Jared, walk us through how this affects traffic.
Well, it'll affect traffic quite a bit, Virginia, and it's views like this that you see behind me that draw lots of drivers and bicyclists and hikers to this road. This is Camino Del Mar, and we're right near Carmel Valley Road. You can see, though, the southbound lanes of Camino Del Mar are blocked by those big green construction fences right back there. And then if you look over even the northbound lanes, one lane is closed. This stretches for a little less than a mile between Carmel Valley and Del Mar Heights Road. You can't drive on this road if you're heading south. The good news is the detour isn't that bad, doesn't take you off of the road for that long. We put this map together to show you. All you got to do coming south is on Del Mar Heights Road, turn left, head east to the 5. You only got to go about 3/4 of a mile down the 5 to Carmel Valley. Then you can head back towards the coast and enjoy those views along the drive. Here's a look at what's causing this mess again. That giant hole in the hillside. It's big enough to drive a van through. This happened last week during the storms that dumped several inches of rain on the area. It also damaged utility lines, so construction crews have run temporary lines to get service to the homes and businesses around here. People who live and drive on this road say the biggest hassle right now is the traffic up the hill at Del Mar Heights and Camino Del Mar. That's where they say everything bottlenecks as people head off the road over to the freeway. They will be really excited when all of this construction is done and things return to normal. Again, though, that could take weeks or even months for construction crews to fill that hole and repair the road. Live in Del Mar, Jared Aarons, 10 News.
To Nigeria now, where about 60 people have been placed under close watch over the outbreak of the contagious Lassa fever in Rivers State. 12 medical personnel that attended to the victims have also been placed under observation. Now, according to a statement by the Lagos Ministry of Health, Lassa fever is contracted by ingesting food or drinks contaminated by the saliva or urine of infected rats, or even by catching and preparing infected rats as food. Now, official figures at Friday put the number of deaths resulting from Lassa fever at 40, with the number of reported cases sitting at 85, and that's just within the last 6 weeks. Lagos is Nigeria's biggest city, so authorities are no doubt concerned and therefore urging residents to be vigilant.
Today we saw new evidence that the barbarity of Syria's civil war has not lessened even after 5 years. A town is being starved by the dictator's forces. Men, women, and children are dying in slow motion, as one resident put it. Here's Elizabeth Palmer.
Months of deprivation have pushed the smallest and the poorest to the very brink. A mother feeds her child with what looks like broth, but is actually water flavored with jam. In an online appeal, a man explains we have no food, no water, and no power, and then he bursts into tears. Please, world, he says, we are dying. Activists say the most wretched are making soup with grass, and some have died of starvation. And all this just 30 miles from the capital, Damascus, in fertile hill country. We traveled there in 2012 when it was still safe enough to visit the rebels who control the area. Now they and more than 40,000 residents are trapped, surrounded by Syrian government forces who have sealed off all the roads. This video, posted by activists, shows the residents begging the government soldiers to let food supplies in. But the last aid convoy they allowed to pass was back in October. But suddenly today, Scott, after those pictures of the starving people had caused international consternation, the Assad government announced that it was going to allow one humanitarian aid convoy into Madaya, probably sometime over the weekend.
This is as close as you'll get to a real-time image of North Korea's claimed hydrogen bomb test. These are satellite images obtained by DigiGlobe, taken just about an hour after that seismic event was sensed underneath the ground here in central North Korea. I want to take you in a bit closer here, this analyzed by experts. And when you look here, these are the entrances to the tunnel. This was an underground explosion. It's in an area where all 4 of North Korea's claimed nuclear tests have taken place. What they notice here, and again, keep in mind, this image taken just an hour after this seismic event went off, is on these heavily used roads leading into the tunnel entrance, there are what appear to be instrumentation vehicles, military vehicles carrying instrumentation equipment over here as well, possible equipment as well, that would make sense, analysts say, for going into that tunnel site just after a blast to measure exactly what it went off, or measure radiation, etc. So a fascinating look just an hour after this test, which looks like another indication that this was indeed an attempted nuclear explosion. Whether it's an H-bomb test, a hydrogen bomb test, that's not known at this point. What's happening now, the next step in effect, is to look at what you sense up in the atmosphere. You have Japanese military planes that have been traveling not over this site, but close enough where the prevailing winds would take the air to try to sense radioactive isotopes in the air that would indicate a nuclear explosion. They have not sensed that yet, but we are told by U.S. military officials that a U.S. Air Force sniffer plane, as it's known, could be deployed soon to the area as well to make a similar judgment, or at least attempt to make a similar judgment, so they know exactly how big this explosion was and what the components were. Key assessment going forward.
Riding a tide of fear and anger, right-wing anti-Muslim groups marched on the streets of Cologne, calling for Germany to close its doors to outsiders. Growing tensions over the newcomers increased after mass assaults on women at Cologne's train station New Year's Eve. The victims described being attacked by dozens of men. Police say many of the suspects are asylum seekers from the Middle East and North Africa. Over the last year, Germany has allowed in more than 1 million of the refugees and migrants who washed onto the continent's shores, even as debate raged over their impact on German society. Since the New Year's attacks, anti-immigrant voices have grown louder and stronger. Bottles and firecrackers were thrown at police today as protesters say their fears about the dangers new arrivals pose are being realized. That's ratcheted up pressure on Chancellor Angela Merkel. Today she proposed making it easier to deport asylum seekers who commit a crime. What happened on New Year's Eve were despicable criminal acts, which call for decisive answers, Merkel said. Under current German law, asylum seekers can only be deported if sentenced up to 3 years in prison, and if their lives aren't at risk in their home country. Under the new proposal, all it would take is an arrest. Serial offenders who repeatedly rob or repeatedly affront women must feel the full force of the law, Merkel said. The changes require political support and an update to the law. But not all in Germany are calling for a change in course. A counter-demonstration welcoming refugees was held alongside the right-wing protest. And another one focused attention on the victims of the New Year's attacks, calling for women's rights to be put ahead of politics and race. I'm calling on politicians to be tougher on criminals of all kinds, not just asylum seekers or refugees or any kind of migrants, this woman says. Cologne police are still investigating the New Year's attacks. No arrests have been made. But the balance of Germany's immigration debate has already shifted, with Merkel today promising to revisit how many people the country is willing to welcome. Stephen D'Souza.
South Korea says North Korea's latest video footage of this SLBM submarine-launched ballistic missile test was most likely manipulated to make it look like it was more successful than it actually was. Oh Soo-young has the details.
In a new video footage released by North Korea's state-run media on Friday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un stands on a military vessel, watching what appears to be a submarine-launched ballistic missile being successfully test-fired. The missile shoots up almost vertically, soaring toward the sky, and at some 30 to 40 meters into the air, its boosters ignite with a boom, and the rocket disappears into the clouds. The test is presumed to have been conducted in December of last year in the East Sea. But the video's release has merely raised suspicions the launch scene was fabricated. This is footage of an SLBM test conducted in July 2014. Kim Jong-un looks on as a Scud missile shoots toward the sky. The shape of the clouds, the background and the mountainous scenery all look eerily familiar. The South Korean military and experts say it appears as though some of the new footage was taken from the 2014 test. This makes it difficult to confirm whether the missile's range has lengthened since previous tests, but the almost vertical liftoff indicates some technological improvements. The latest footage comes more than 2 weeks after North Korea claims the test was conducted. It's believed the regime planned to release the video after its nuclear test on Wednesday to flaunt its nuclear warhead capacity. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
It's the heart of Istanbul and one of its most popular tourist spots. This is Sultanahmet Square less than an hour after an explosion. The site cordoned off and security tight.
It was a suicide bomb, yes. I went there and saw it and came back to the hotel. It was chaos. Everybody was running around. Police didn't see this coming. They were sad, but at the same time they were trying to evacuate the area because they said a second bomb could go off.
Istanbul is Turkey's biggest city, where the historic Sultanahmet Square is a major attraction for tourists and Turks alike. Thousands visit every day. The district is also home to the Hagia Sophia Museum and the Blue Mosque. Some in Turkey had been expecting attacks since Turkish forces launched an offensive against ISIL, as well as Kurdish PKK fighters. In October, at least 102 people were killed in a double suicide blast on a peace rally in the capital, Ankara.
I strongly condemn this attack, this apparent terrorist act caused by a suicide bomber. I'd like to offer my condolences to those who lost their loved ones and pray for those who lost their lives. Once again, this shows us how important it is to be united in the face of terrorism. Turkey's determined, resolute stance against terrorism will continue.
The very scene Turkey had feared. Foreigners among the dead and injured from a blast at the country's most popular tourist hub, Sultanahmet Square, home of the famous Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia. Authorities have identified a Syrian national as the attacker. An attack like this, targeting the country's $69 billion tourism industry, was not unexpected amid a security situation that has rapidly deteriorated. Just 2 weeks ago, authorities claimed they thwarted a plot to bomb New Year's Eve celebrations in Ankara. 2 men with alleged ISIS ties were arrested as they scouted locations and were found carrying a vest and bag packed with explosives ready to use. The Islamic group was also blamed for the country's worst attack in modern history, the twin suicide bombings in Ankara, which killed 103 people in October. So too a bombing that claimed 33 lives in Suruç, near the Syrian border in July. The wave of violence has exposed Turkey's increasing vulnerability to attack, despite countrywide sweeps that have seen hundreds of individuals with alleged terrorist links detained. Many in Turkey have been bracing themselves for what unfolded in Sultanahmet Square early on Tuesday. A strike at the heart of an industry that attracts more than 34 million visitors a year.
Of course, we don't have all the information, neither about the victims nor about the perpetrators. But we are very worried German citizens could be among the victims and injured, and probably are. Those affected are members of a German travel group. And of course, the German Foreign Office has immediately established a crisis unit, and we try to get all information as fast as possible.
Foreigners named among the casualties. This latest attack of terror on Turkish soil, also an attack on the historic soul of the country.
See you then. All after-school and evening activities at Wellington High School have been canceled because of a bomb threat there today. Students had to be evacuated this morning after police were notified of this threat. The Palm Beach County's Sheriff's Bomb Squad searched the school as a precaution, found nothing. Students were released early because of the threat, but the district just tweeted that classes will resume tomorrow.
And according to a U.S. defense official, Iran just seized U.S. Navy boats. 10 American sailors have been detained. This is breaking news right now. Let's bring in CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto. Jim, what can you tell us?
Jake, a potentially alarming situation underway, certainly serious. We have word from both defense officials and a senior administration official that 2 small U.S. Navy boats, they were in transit from Kuwait rather, to Bahrain, that they were detained by Iranian naval vessels with 10 U.S. sailors on board. The U.S. has since been in touch with Iranian authorities who confirm that those 10 sailors are in Iranian custody, although the senior administration official tells us that they've been assured by Iranian authorities that they will soon be released. They've been assured that they are healthy and in good condition. Regardless, however, in those dangerous waters, they're a conflict between, really military, between U.S. and Iran. Just to have those sailors in Iranian custody, certainly a very serious situation. You may remember, Jake, just a couple of weeks ago, an Iranian small naval boat fired rockets very close to a U.S. aircraft carrier, also in the Persian Gulf, taken at the time by officials I spoke with as at least a message. They were not trying to put that U.S. aircraft carrier in danger, but it was certainly a message. And this one you might be able to take as one as well. And I don't have to mention the timing tonight with the president giving his final State of the Union address, where he'll be certain or very likely to mention the Iran nuclear deal, which is days away from implementation. Implementation meaning when those punishing economic sanctions on Iran will be lifted in conjunction with that nuclear deal. The timing of this with the State of the Union, with that nuclear deal coming, certainly very dangerous and concerning timing, Jake.
In God we trust is the official motto of the United States, but many people object to that phrase for religious reasons. The Now's Lauren Wilson is in the newsroom. And Lauren, there's a group who wants the phrase removed from our currency.
Yeah, Dom. This is a 112-page lawsuit against the federal government by nearly 40 plaintiffs who are mostly atheists wanting the phrase removed from American cash. The lawsuit was filed Monday in a federal court in Akron and argues the phrase on our money violates the constitutional rights of those who do not believe in God. The unnamed parents and children listed as plaintiffs are from both Ohio and Michigan, including the Northern Ohio Free Thought Society of Cleveland, who told me they just want equality.
We're forced to sort of carry this message around of "In God We Trust" when we don't agree with it. Anything that has a promotion of God in it in the public arena, we feel is an endorsement of a religion by the government and therefore a violation of the First Amendment.
Now, the lead lawyer, Michael Newdow, he has sued the government twice before and lost a similar suit about removing the use of the phrase "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. So far in this case, a judge has not yet been assigned. For The Now, I'm Lauren Wilson.
Boots on the ground. This is the picture Governor Rick Snyder and state officials want you to see responding to the Flint water crisis.
But there is another picture we're showing you, and it's how this is failing. 7 investigator Jim Kurtzner is live in Flint with this story. Jim.
They've been going through the water here by the pallets. You can see what's remaining here. This truck just brought another supply, not only of bottled water, but spin around here and you can see these boxes are filters that these people need as they live through this water crisis. For them, this is very real, and for the governor, it continues to be a political and public relations nightmare. So crank up the PR machine and then we'll show you the rest of the story.
I'm Captain Chris Kolensky with the Michigan State Police. Every Flint resident is able to receive a water filter and replacement filters, bottled water, home water testing, and blood testing.
This public service ad just produced promises the bare essentials for Flint residents. And for the first time since the governor made his Flint emergency declaration last week, we are seeing state-organized door-to-door deliveries of free bottled water and filters. The third promised item, lead test kits, nowhere to be found.
I'm asking them if they ever had them there at all. That's the question that
What answer are you getting?
I'm asking, they're saying that they didn't get them at all. They don't know when they're going to get them.
5 Flint fire stations are open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and supposed to be handing out the free bottled water, filters, and test kits, but they are deplorably short. The demand is high. They're going through the bottled water like water, limiting 1 case per resident. So what do you think of that?
let's just hope and pray that they're working on it.
It was back in April of 2014 that the governor's emergency manager ordered Flint off the Detroit water system, switching to using Flint River water to save money. The river was more corrosive, causing lead to leach into the drinking water of 100,000 Flint residents.
I just feel bad, how to feel to say, because you don't have a filter. You can give it to your son or your daughter to drink water from the sink.
The governor is not in Flint. He's making the rounds at the Detroit Auto Show. And his fix in Flint, so far, is failing.
We got answers that weren't correct. And so now we found out. No, this isn't my legacy. This is part of my legacy. I am responsible for the entire state and our operations.
Now, I've been checking, and state officials cannot tell me when the rest of these needed supplies will be here, nor how much the state is spending on all of this. They do say the governor is considering asking the legislature for more money to fix these ongoing massive Flint problems. I'm live in Flint. Jim Kurtz, 7 Action News.